We are in a quite challenging moment for the international situation. We have two wars at the border of NATO. We have Russia and Iran on the front line. We have China challenging the international order, not mentioning the Global South, who's asking and working for a new and for a different order. So for this very situation, our goal, defending democracy, defending our way of life, it's a goal, it's a must. So let's talk about it, what NATO could and should do, how NATO mission evolved in the last 75 years. So let me thank you to Ambassador Cesar for having me today, and we'll open the work. Let me introduce Mr. Michal Szczerba, President of the National Parliamentary Assembly, Mrs. Stefania Craxi, President of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee of the Italian Senate, and Mr. Lorenzo Cesa, Head of the Italian Delegation to the NATO Parliamentary Assembly. There is a lot on our plate, so Mr. Szczerba, the floor is yours for your first introductory statement. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here in Rome, and I would like to thank you to the organizers for inviting me. It's a pleasure to represent the NATO Parliamentary Assembly and to celebrate the greatest and the most successful alliance in modern history. I'm also delighted to share this panel with my friend Lorenzo Cesa, the head of Italian delegation to NATO Parliamentary Assembly and one of the national leaders in our assembly, who is mostly respectful for all our friends and allies. Thank you, Lorenzo, for your work in our assembly. I would like to also to recognize Chairwoman Craxi. We know what you do for NATO and for Italian diplomacy. I want to start by thanking Italy for its strong contribution to NATO and our assembly. Italy is a founding member, and for the past 75 years, it has been a reliable ally fully dedicated to the unique transatlantic bond, and it has played a leading role in all central NATO priorities, missions and operations. Italy has been in particular a leader in guaranteeing stability in the southern neighborhood, and which is currently at risk from the Iranian regime. Ladies and gentlemen, when Foreign Minister Count Sforza signed the Washington Treaty, he explained NATO's significance in very clear words. He stressed that NATO was born out of the necessity of uniting all of us in order to save our most cherished common patrimony, peace and democracy. Peace and democracy, this is what NATO stood for 75 years ago and what it stands for today. Our Assembly is convinced that NATO has succeeded throughout all shifts in the security environment for 75 years because it is defined not by what it stands against, but what it stands for. The defense of democracy, individual liberty and the rule of law. This mission, these values are mentioned at the very beginning of the Washington Treaty in its preamble. This is our responsibility today. We must demonstrate every day that the security NATO provides is at the heart of our prosperity. And we must shape NATO for the next generations stronger than ever. Our Assembly's vision for NATO is very simple. We reaffirmed it at the Standing Committee meeting in Tallinn last month. We took place in this event with Lorenzo, and I will present it NATO heads and I will present it to NATO heads of state and governments in Washington when I will be speaking to the audience. NATO must be an alliance of democracies, an alliance determined to defend every inch of allied territory at all times under Article 5. an alliance committed to standing with Ukraine until victory and beyond, an alliance which fairly shares the benefits, the burdens and responsibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, allies are implementing this vision to strengthen deterrence and defense, to make NATO's new defense plans executable, to ensure all allies spend at least 2% of GDP on defense, to strengthen allied defense industries and to increase production. But we believe one key aspect is missing. NATO cannot be an alliance of democracies just in words. It needs concrete actions. In today's world, security is not only about modern tanks, jets or a well-equipped and trained army. It's also about a well-functioning state, informed citizens. It's a whole system that makes up our resilience, our civic resilience and democratic resilience. Every day, we have new evidence of Russia's and China's attempts to interfere in our election and to destabilize our democracies and institutions. That is why 5 years ago, our Assembly has pushed for the creation of a Democratic Resilience Center at NATO headquarters. It's our proposal and we want to complete this idea. We must be true to the vision of the founders of NATO. They knew that peace and democracy were our most precious gifts. NATO must step up. The Washington summit must finally establish a Center for Democratic Resilience at NATO headquarters. Not to dictate, not to interfere, but to help allies and partners on a voluntary basis better defend against autocracy. I hope we can finally get to this done in Washington. I count on Italy's support. We must defend our values first and foremost at home, in each of our countries. But it is in Ukraine that our values face their greatest challenge today. By supporting Ukraine, we ensure that democracy prevails over autocracy. We ensure lasting Euro-Atlantic security. That is why we must stand with Ukraine until victory. This must be our strategic goal. We must urgently provide Ukraine with all it needs, free from self-imposed red lines. We can and must do more. NATO allies represent half of the world's economic and military might. The aid we provide to Ukraine represents only a very small fraction of our collective GDP. If we don't help Ukraine now, NATO allies will pay a much higher price tomorrow. Because Putin will not stop in Ukraine, we must also say very clearly we want Ukraine in NATO as soon as possible, as conditions will allow for this. This is why last month our Assembly decided to recognize Ukraine as a candidate country. We increased the number of seats from 8 to 12, what it would have as a NATO PA member. The Washington summit must also recognize Ukraine's significant progress and bring Ukraine closer to membership. Dear colleagues, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, as NATO parliamentarians, we are 279 MPs. We represent the 1 billion citizens of the alliance. We are determined to play our part in our shaping the alliance for the next generations, an alliance firmly grounded in our shared democratic values. Because this is what makes us unique. This is what makes us strong. We stand for peace and for democracy, one for all and all for one. Thank you.